Hey, good morning. That is some good stuff right there. Nice, good vibe on this Friday morning. Oh, yeah. Good stuff, man. Mark Harmony. I think they were on the One Micronesia podcast, right? Yeah, it's awesome. Marshall Islands, I believe. You saw the flag there. It's a great video. Awesome pick-me-upper for a Friday morning. Friday, whoa, business. Good morning. Mood is empanada. Yep. Sorry, Tomas. I know we haven't, because we've been on this whole like workout thing, right? And so, TBH, we used to have empanada in here all the time when Sabrina and Jason were here. We would have empanada. We wouldn't discriminate because we're, a Chamorro Filipino morning show. We've got us, and then we have Joe Sir. We would get the empanada, and then we would also get the empanadito. Empanadito, which is the Filipino empanada. It's like the fatter one, right? It's shorter with the ground beef and the peas, and then sometimes raisins. I like it with the raisins. People hate on the raisins, but what else are you going to do with those raisins that have been in your cabinet for 2 years? Got to use them someplace. So, yeah, we were eating empanada this morning. Tomas, really good. I ate one for you, but just one, okay?
All right, have another one then.
Yeah, I think he's going to eat a piggy for us, or ice keki, since you're in, or what is it? The one that, the blueberry bread.
Yeah, I guess that's the fan favorite, home of the blueberries.
Yeah, I got the blueberry capital of the Marianas. I mean, Tomas, you do a bunch of great reporting, but I would love to see you do an investigative piece on just exactly how this whole blueberry trend started in Saipan, where it originated, the history. I mean, when you have time.
Well,
I know
you're kind of you said it on the air, I'm going to have to look into this now.
So that's what I got to do. I just got to say it on the air, and it gets done. Okay. That's 8:37, guys, Friday, April 1st, 2022. Let's go ahead and get into our CNMI special report. He does a great job reporting regional news for us from the KUAM News team live from Saipan. Tomas Manglona. Good morning, Tomas.
Good morning, Chris. Yes, this week has been a long and busy week in terms of the CNMI impeachment trial of Governor Ralph Torres. The two legal battles, the one happening in the CNMI Senate and the impeachment trial, and then now the court at the judiciary where in Superior Court yesterday, the governor's attorneys and the House Legal Counsel finally faced off over the legislative subpoena after Torres failed to appear before the House committee that held him in contempt back in December. Let's get everyone up to speed. I wanted to share the story from yesterday, summarizing what happened in Superior Court before former Judge Timothy Bellis. And so we got a chance to also speak with the attorneys. And so here's that story from yesterday from Superior Court in the CNMI.
The executive and legislative branches facing off in court. CNMI Governor Ralph Torres' attorneys sparred with the House Judiciary and Governmental Operations Committee over their motion to dismiss the governor's lawsuit, which challenges the legislative subpoena that Torres was held in contempt for failing to appear before the House panel. When members of the committee voted to hold him in contempt in December, a month before he was impeached, Torres released a video message saying that he did not testify in an effort to protect future governors from arbitrary overreach by future legislatures. And that was the main question in Superior Court today before retired Judge Timothy Bellis, who was appointed after all 5 trial court judges recused themselves. The question remains, is the legislature's subpoena enforceable, especially with the sitting chief executive? We asked the governor's attorneys for comment after the hearing. Mr. Miller, can we just get your comment on today's proceedings?
Okay.
Do you have a comment, Burnbrick, on today's proceedings?
You could just ask our press office.
DC-based lawyer Ross Garber appeared virtually on behalf of the governor, largely arguing executive privilege and immunity from the subpoena. House Legal Counsel Brendan Lade says he's confident in the legislature's case.
We agree with the court that it's unfortunate that the judiciary was placed in this position of having to arbitrate between the legislative and executive branches. We also do not relish the judiciary having been placed in that position by the executive.
Lade argued that the House committee as a body is entitled to immunity from suit when it's an oversight. The governor's team fired back, saying that a legislative subpoena for a sitting chief executive is relatively rare and that going to court was a last resort as a result of what they say was failed accommodations by the legislature. The most notable moment is perhaps from the start when Judge Timothy Bellis set the stage, posing two questions of his own. The first is if the matter is moot or still relevant because the contempt charge is also listed as the 6th article of impeachment, which the House voted on in January. The second question, why didn't the parties involved submit a certified question for the Supreme Court to answer? Bellis pointed out that his decision, which has yet to be issued, could be appealed. Meanwhile, lawmakers from the House filled the audience. Its chair, Representative Selena Babauta, who attended virtually, told KOAM News that she hopes the Attorney General will proceed with the criminal contempt of Governor Torres as he is not above the law. She adds, I am confident of the abilities of our House counsel as both have the experience and were very well prepared for the civil matter before the court. Tomas Manglona for KOAM News on Saipan.
And so, Chris, that was one of the very first times where we finally got to see the House leadership, the House members of that committee that has been investigating Governor Torres with Representative Selena Babauta at the helm of that, really starting to make its arguments against the governor's 4 attorneys, again, one of whom is Russ Garber, who's a DC-based lawyer who appeared virtually over video call. The courtroom yesterday in the CNMI, before Judge Bellis, it was packed with lawmakers. It was quite something to see the judiciary entertain this motion to dismiss with both representatives from the executive branch and then, of course, as you saw there, the House legal counsel. I did again want to play this clip of when the governor's attorneys, Horry Miller and Burnbrick walked out of the Superior Courtroom and we saw their comments. So wanted to show you them exiting the room, the courtroom, and what they had to say to the media.
Mr. Miller, can we just get your comment on today's proceedings?
No thanks.
Do you have a comment, Burnbrick, on today's proceedings?
You could just ask our press office. We'll comment through them.
Okay.
And so, Chris, we finally did get that media statement just around 4 p.m. yesterday. This came from Brianna Hunter through an email. Gil Burnbrick, legal counsel for the CNMI governor, issued the following statement. And in this case, it's for Torres versus the House Standing Committee on Judiciary and Governmental Operations. It says here, quote, I'll read the full statement in full. We thank Judge Bellis for allowing our off-island counsel, that's Russ Garber, to participate remotely and wish to thank the court staff in making it happen. Burnbrick adds, the governor and his legal team also acknowledge the professionalism of Judge Bellis and opposing counsel at the hearing on defendant's motion to dismiss. It was clear that Judge Bellis had thoroughly read the parties' briefs and thoughtfully reviewed the process. And then in that statement, they continue to add that the issues presented in the case are certainly unprecedented in the CNMI. They add, never before has an ordinary committee, they say, of a house of the legislature attempted to subpoena a sitting governor and force him to appear before them. We believe our arguments opposing the House committee's motion to dismiss are strong and look forward to moving ahead to the next phase of the case. And Chris, a really striking moment at the end of the oral arguments yesterday where Judge Timothy Bellis said the judiciary does not relish in the fact that it has to entertain or make a decision on the matter between 2 branches of the government. If you recall early on, the CNMI Supreme Court, they recused themselves from basically presiding over the trial, saying that the matter of impeachment is a purely legislative function that they would like to not get involved in and maintain the power balance in the checks and balance system in our government. However, that's also something that the House legal counsel, Brendan Lade, who's also been the legal counsel throughout this entire process for the JGO committee, commented yesterday. So here's our interview with the House legal counsel, Brendan Lade, fresh from oral arguments yesterday. The first time we really got to speak with him with regard to the matter before the court, because usually in the legislature we would defer to hearing from lawmakers, but we wanted to provide you his perspective as the legal mind behind the House's argument. So here's Brendan Lade after the court hearing yesterday.
Brendan, can we just get your comment on today's proceedings, Brendan? Can you just get your comment on what transpired in court today?
Is it okay if I take my mask off? Sure. Mr. Miller and Mr. Garber both argued well. We await the court's response. We agree with the court that it's unfortunate that the judiciary was placed in this position of having to arbitrate between the legislative and executive branches. We also do not relish the judiciary having been placed in that position by the executive, but we have faith in Judge Bellis's acumen, and it'll be very interesting to see how this moves forward procedurally, as well as what the collateral consequences will be for the other related proceedings. Thank you.
Do you believe that you've addressed each of the plaintiffs' arguments against the JGO committee? Do you believe you adequately addressed that today in court, or are there some things you'd like to address further?
I think our pleadings addressed the governor's amended complaint and his opposition. The arguments in court today focused on those issues which we in opposing counsel and the bench felt were most salient for further clarification.
And Mr. Miller described all of the facts that you brought in as merely background information. Would you agree with that characterization?
No, we believe, as we submitted to the court, that the good faith of the governor and his counsel is relevant to the legal standard under the select committee, which both we and the governor rely on. Only if the governor proffered in good faith a colorable claim of a separation of powers argument can he trump the legislative immunity asserted by the JGO should the court follow the select committee analysis. And we would submit that the factual background is in fact relevant to demonstrating that the governor and his counsel were not in good faith in asserting that argument.
The issue, I guess we could ask the congresswomen themselves, but the issue of reissuing a subpoena, where do you stand on that? Do you have a comment on that?
That's for Chairwoman Babata to decide.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
And so, Chris, again, there you saw some of the legal arguments laid out on whether or not the subpoena was valid. We did get a chance to reach out to the JGO committee chairwoman, who again was attending virtually but didn't speak on record in front of the court during the proceedings. She tells us the JGO committee, this is Representative Selena Babata, who's the chair of the JGO committee. Her full statement was that the JGO committee can always reissue a subpoena pursuant to its constitutional authority. She says the JGO committee has already unanimously found Governor Torres in contempt of a legislative subpoena, and the Speaker has referred the matter for criminal prosecution to the Attorney General as prescribed by Title I, Section 1306 of the Commonwealth Code. Representative Babata also added in our inquiry, she says, I hope the Attorney General will proceed with the criminal contempt of Governor Torres as he is not above the law. She says, I am confident of the abilities of our House counsel as both have the experience and were very well prepared for the civil matter before the court. And so, Chris, I just also wanted to bring back our story from December 2020 of when Governor Torres was held in contempt. This initial court procedure was scheduled to happen a few months ago and was rescheduled to yesterday. And so the issue of impeachment is a separate, a bit of separated from the matter before the court. So they say because this contempt charge is being challenged on its own. And as you heard there from Brendan Lade, it'll be interesting to see how the judge's decision, which is expected any time in the near future, will impact the future proceedings, given that Governor Torres's contempt charge is listed as the 6th article of impeachment. So here's our story from December 2020 of when Governor Torres was held in contempt, and what Governor Torres had to say and what members of the legislature had to say when they voted to hold him in contempt for violating their legislative subpoena.
All 7 members voted to hold Governor Ralph de Leon Guerrero Torres in contempt of a lawfully served subpoena on himself.
The House committee investigating the governor taking action for his no-show last Friday. The governor this morning made clear he isn't backing down.
Their agenda is simple. The House JGO committee wants to impeach a governor who was elected by the people. But who do they not like? I will not be attending the House JGO committee hearing because the executive branch is a separate and equal branch of government under the Commonwealth Constitution and must be treated equally to the legislative branch.
Torres taking to Facebook in a series of videos explaining his side of the story, while it appears both sides have had enough.
If the governor had come in to testify under oath today, we would have asked him to explain his actions. We would have asked him to explain his spending of public funds. We would have asked him to address what appears to be a pattern of wasteful and extravagant abuse of government resources.
Chair Selena Babauta says the decision did not come lightly.
For months, Governor Torres has been longing, yearning to clear his name. But when the time came to feature his testimony, he was a no-show. He rejected being put under oath to provide any explanation or responses to the JGO inquiries. This was his opportunity, and he blew it.
Now, a potential legal battle between the two branches of government hangs in the balance.
I do this to protect not only the rights as governor, but to protect the institution of governor under the Constitution, and thus protect future governors from arbitrary overreach by future legislatures.
Tomas Manglona for KUAM News
I am
on
asking
Saipan.
everyone in our community.
And so, Chris, there you heard it, the governor explaining in December 2021, rather, I believe I introduced the clip as being from 2020, but from just this past December, that story of when he was held in contempt. The governor saying that he's not deciding to testify, he decided not to testify in front of the committee because he wants to not only protect his rights, but the rights of future governors. Very much the main question, the central question yesterday in Superior Court was whether or not the legislature's subpoena was enforceable. Of course, the House committee agrees that it is and that it's well within their jurisdiction outlined through law. And of course, Russ Garber, the DC-based lawyer representing Governor Torres, saying this is a rare occurrence, a rare event in which a sitting president or a sitting executive would be summoned in such a way to be commanded to appear and before another branch of government. It was quite interesting as well. There was a lot of references made to President Donald Trump and his impeachment proceedings, and also the insurrection that happened in January 6th, and the subpoenas, the legislative subpoenas that were issued and challenged and upheld then. One particular line that came up from in the court hearing was that Governor Ralph Torres is not President Donald Trump. And so you can see there kind of the arguments that are being made on the federal level, but also what it might mean for local government and local levels. And so again, we'll continue to be tracking this story and give you the latest once we do hear back with regards to a decision from Judge Timothy Bellis in the matter of whether or not the court will grant the motion to dismiss, or as he said, his decision also could be appealed, and we'll see what this causes in terms of a domino effect. Again, these parallel battles happening in the judiciary between the House and legislative, between the legislative and executive branch, all the while that the House and executive and the Senate are still battling out procedurally what the trial in the Senate will look like. We have yet to see that. Senate President Jude Hofschneider is expected to release a response to the House's press conference a few days ago, where they asked for 5 prosecutors on their team instead of 1. So Senate President Jude Hofschneider will be responding to the House sometime today, we're told. Also, Chris, before wrapping up here, I wanted to address another matter that has come up from Governor Torres's team as well, which is the involvement of Representative Tina Sablan in the impeachment process. We all know, as we've been reporting, Lieutenant Governor Arnold Palacios is running for governor as an independent. Obviously, Governor Torres is running for re-election as a Republican. And again, Representative Tina Sablan running as a Democrat. So a large argument from the opposition too is that as much as the ethics of Governor Torres is being called into question, the ethics of Representative Tina Sablan are also being called into question. So we got a chance the other day to ask her directly to respond to these assertions. And I wanted to play her full response here in the press conference where she addresses the ethics of her involvement in this process of impeachment.
It's not unfair. We're asking for a chance for our team, the team that has been appointed by the Speaker, to make the case before the Senate, and the team that has been preparing. As to the ethics of my involvement, I am a member of this legislature. I'm one of 15 members who voted on impeachment. My participation in the investigation and in the impeachment of Ralph Torres began long before I decided to accept the Democratic nomination for governor. I have a job to do. I take that job seriously. And I would also note that prior to my vote on the impeachment, once it was clear that I was the Democratic nominee, prior to that vote, I consulted with multiple attorneys, our House counsel as well as outside counsel, and we reviewed House ethics rules as well as the ethics code to see if there was an impermissible conflict that would bar me from continuing to participate in that process. And the answer was no. I would also note that there is precedent for other legislators, other members of legislative bodies who are running for executive office, also voting in impeachment proceedings. The recent impeachments of President Trump are one example, right? So I am firm in my belief that I voted well within the ethics rules. I had a job to do, a constitutional responsibility, and I have done that job.
Of course, Tina Sablan saying her involvement in the impeachment process was well before she decided to run for governor, Chris, and she says she consulted multiple attorneys and the House counsel who see no conflict. We can't help but report also that Republican Senator Vinny Sablan, who's Torres's running mate, is also expected to participate in the final vote in the Senate impeachment trial. Those are some of the latest developments, all happening in just the past 5 days here in the CNMI. Things definitely wrapping up, and next week will bring its own new challenges moving forward with the impeachment process as well.
Yeah, this is very, very interesting, Tomas. I think it's also this this whole issue about the ethical problems with politicians. I mean, it's the whole thing. We're talking about politicians being political, right?
Yes, and in some ways, the NMI Supreme Court, in their decision not to preside over the trial, pointed that out, that it is a legislative function, it's a political function, and some would even say political remedy to some of the allegations and things that are going to be, explained and parsed out in the Senate impeachment trial. There's yet to be a date scheduled. I know everyone's been looking at that matter. But hopefully today, when Senate President Jude Hofschneider provides his response to the House, the community might get a clearer picture of whether or not, first of all, when it will happen, but also secondly, if he will entertain the ask of the House to expand their prosecutorial team. It seems as though, based on prior interviews, that he's not going to make that happen. But in reporting throughout this past few months on this issue, it's not over till it's over. But at the same time, it is what it is. So we'll see which one of that it is.
You didn't just "it is what it is" out of this thing, did you?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. It is what it is. You're right. Tomas, thank you so much. And I was cracking up because before you started your report, I was making the joke that you should do an investigative series on what is up with all the blueberry and Saipan. And I know that these Saipanese or the CNMI politicians, they probably heard that. They're like, yes, please. Can you just do the blueberry story? Never mind the impeachment. Just do do the blueberry story.
We can walk and chew gum at the same time, so we'll do it. We'll do it all.
Thank you, Tomas. Be safe.
Thanks, Chris.
Right on. Tomas Manglona, awesome job, really covering regional news in the CNMI. Just really part of our regional approach to the news, and we're so glad that we're able to pick up an outstanding reporter like Tomas. Good morning. It is 9 o'clock. We're KUAM FM, Agotnia, Guam. Sir, a quick break, and then we're going to come back and close out the show.